It's fine. We're starting, so we're going live. I think we're live. We are. And let's bring everybody in on the webinar side. And I think we are good to go.
Okay.
So, hello, everyone, whether it's live or recorded. We don't have a preference either way, though it's nice that you're here with us. This is the Global Virtual Design Sprint Community of Practice session number 7, I believe. And this time around, it's going to be another walkthrough of a tool that we have been kind of dancing around the fire with, trying out ourselves, doing a little bit of experimentation with. And me and the panelist that's with me now have been kind of doing a little bit of a communication dance back and forth. It's like, hey, do you want to check it out? Hey, we don't know yet. Hey, are you ready now? Hey, we tried on our own. Oh, that's nice. Do you want to? So me and Cheska have been kind of going back and forth with kind of doing this kind of session with MeetButter. So without going into too much detail, Cheska, why don't you give an overview of who you are, what you're all about, and where you're located, and where you would love to go on vacation when this whole entire pandemic nonsense is all done.
That's a really tough question also. So I'll start first with the intro. I'm Cheska. I'm the head of growth and user research for MeetButter, resident Filipina in the team. Prior to this, I was actually working primarily in digital marketing agency. And then this year was meant to be a sabbatical year, but things didn't go as planned. So I actually joined, I happened upon MeetButter because of some people I used to work with in my previous agency. And I've been super happy ever since. MeetButter, obviously, like we'll be walking through it later, so I won't go through touch on that as much. In terms of profile, I've always been a strat planner at heart and by trade as well, and that's essentially what I'm helping them do in MeetButter. On your tougher question, where I'd love to vacation once all this is over, maybe somewhere in India would be nice. Actually, I'd love to do India and also explore parts of South America. So doing the sabbatical I was meant to do. And I'm located in Hamburg. So a bit of a long intro to that.
It was an all expenses paid vacation, like say that basically my company's funding it. How would that change the dynamics between you traveling in India and then South America?
Wouldn't really change as much, although I'd probably spend quite a bit. I'll do business class if you're if you're willing to shoulder that. Like slum it out during the vacation and then not so much during the flights.
Yeah. I wonder if in business class they're going to start equipping everything with like neon lights, just to kind of make sure that everyone feels comfortable kind of traveling from place to place. But we'll see.
Yeah. Let's see. Have you traveled this time around? Or
no, I am avoiding it because, and side note, here in Dallas, Texas, where we've always taken the virus very seriously.
Sarcasm right there.
A lot of people got comfortable with the idea that they were through the worst of it during the summer break. A lot, and my neighbor, both her and her daughter had to be quarantined recently. We have some extended family members in the Dallas area. I would say now about a third of them have either came in contact with someone or come down with it, and some of them have severe health issues. So it's one of those things where it's still in the conversation, and for Texas, it's going to be a while. So they should definitely get together and compare notes. That's all I could say, because I don't think it's quite sunk in that this thing doesn't care about much of anything. It just wants to go, hey, you're interesting. Let me host you. Oh, look at these lungs. Oh, that's nice. So anyway, beside the point. We're all gathered here today not to talk about COVID, but we're here to talk about MeetButter. Now, if you've never heard of this particular application, from I know that Cheska would probably be the perfect person to ask this question, but I'm going to intro it by saying MeetButter would be, I would call it a very pleasant alternative to the milieu of different choices you have for getting together online to have a session, do a workshop, and so on. In fact, it's an application, I would say, or an app, a tool that has been evolving pretty rapidly over the course of 2020. So from there, would that be a good stepping off point for you, Cheska?
Yeah, I think definitely. And then later, I'll also definitely screen share so you can see what exactly Robert is talking about. And super kind words. Thank you so much. Well, yeah, as Robert mentioned, we actually just started the entire product back in May. We started researching about it, and it was really born out of the fact that a couple of us were trying to give online workshops back in March and April. We were trying to help companies go remote or be COVID ready and help them implement some of the culture, tool suite, so on and so forth. But what we found was that it was super cumbersome to actually hold sessions online, hold virtual sessions. And a lot of the things that you would normally feel in live workshops, like the energy of the room, how engaging participants are, usually fall flat in virtual sessions. And we felt that we felt that we weren't the only ones who were having that problem, and we tried digging deeper and asking facilitators like yourself actually what exactly the pain point was. And we found that there were two main things or two interesting problems to solve at the onset. First being the fact that sometimes if you to run an entire session, you actually need anywhere between 3 to 7 tools open in one go. And if you don't have the right sort of setup, it can be super overwhelming because you almost need to carve out your screen to have all these apps open. Like Zoom, you need to have Zoom, you need to have Slido, you need to have Slack, you need to have Miro. And if you don't have the right setup, that can put a drain on the energy. And instead of focusing on the workshop, you end up focusing on the tools instead. Which leads me to the larger problem, which we're actually still trying to solve, is the fact that it's really hard to read and feel the rooms online. And Robert, considering that you have a lot more experience in facilitation, this is probably something that you resonate with a bit again. But it's more that in live sessions, it's easy to pick up on nonverbal cues from participants. It's easy to sort of tailor the discussion and the outcomes and get to the outcomes that you need as a facilitator if you sort of have a sense of the room. But when we actually did user research on the problem, a lot of facilitators said that they felt blind as to what participants were feeling. Sometimes they felt that they couldn't hear into the breakout rooms. They couldn't hear what exactly participants were saying. And this is something that essentially was super interesting and is still interesting to us because if you don't have the right sort of senses or the energy inputs that you need in virtual workshops, it would be super hard to get to the outcomes that you need in whatever it is you're facilitating. So MeetButter was essentially designed to help facilitators have more interactive and delightful online workshops. We're super laser focused on that. And essentially, we actually want to turn it into a more of a full workshop suite. Right now, it's more of a video conferencing platform, as you mentioned. And it's a pleasant alternative to Zoom, if you may call it. And yeah, but hopefully more and more we want to evolve into something that looks into the pre-workshop, during workshop, and post-workshop parts of the session. Does that give a bit of an overview?
Why don't you repeat it for all the people that have it just joined on? No, I think that was a good summary. I think evolution is the main thing, and that it seems like it's moving in that direction, especially when you're talking about the entire workshop ecosystem, or at least a session ecosystem. It's interesting to see where it's gone because I've been part of the. I was a user tester for some of the MeetButter features that are being worked on, so I have to. I have signed not like a quid pro quo NDA, I would speak, and that I am not going to speak about anything that I looked at. But what we are going to do is kind of share your screen and go through a walkthrough of the different things right now that people can take advantage of by trying out MeetButter. And in fact, let me make sure that you can share your screen so that I'm not just saying, oh, we're going to basically not show it. We're going to tell you what you should be seeing. And the whole point is that we're sharing screens just to make sure that people understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, maybe you can also log into the MeetButter thing. So it just feels like I'm actually interacting with someone. Okay. If it's possible. Perfect. Thank you.
I can do that for you. Yes, no problem. Hang on a second. Okay.
This is when music would be lovely.
I'll keep it going.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Okay, let's see. I'm going to be Santa Claus then.
So for everyone, I don't know whether the audio is transmitting, but
it's probably
Santa
super
Claus,
loud for everybody else that we're trying to make this as
yeah.
excruciatingly interesting as possible.
Let me try sharing my screen first. So it's also
That is a word, excruciatingly interesting.
Wait, let's see Chrome. See, I haven't really allowed the screen to share. One moment.
It's fine.
Okay, should be able to share my screen now. Okay.
You know, it would be really cool. And I've seen this at the Perot Museum, which is a museum of science that's here in Dallas.
Yes.
They have different things where you can overlay tracks and try different filters to basically like change music up. So if you were able to put like multi-tracks in here and you wanted to change like just the beats and stuff, that would be like that would be like a MeetButter icon, and every MeetButter icon that you click on gets to go exposes the
Putting that
complexity of
into
something.
the idea board for sure.
Yep.
I think I'd need to give Zoom access, but if ever I'd need to log out of the call, is that fine with you?
You're gonna leave me alone here. That's fine. You go ahead. I'll go ahead and stay here, and I'll just play Christmas tunes until you get back. There you go.
See, this is the problem when I haven't
like 2 or
used
3
Zoom in a
minutes.
long time. Yeah. Oh my God. You can entertain people. I'm sure you can.
Oh, I'm sure I can. Yes. All right. So we'll do a reset. You go ahead and restart, and then we'll be right back. Hey, everybody. Since let's see here, we have, and this is just for fun, we have no one else in Zoom. I think we have Lee Duncan over in, we have Lee and Niktar. We have some people over at YouTube that are basically hanging out. So what kind of questions would you like to have for me? I'm kidding. She'll be back. So I'm not as entertaining as people would like it to be. By the way, here's an interesting joke. Oh, hi, Cheska. How are you? Nice to see you again.
Now I need to unmute. Now I'm back. Yay.
No, you're back.
I hope you can see my screen.
Yeah, I can see the launch Zoom one.
Yeah, perfect. So let me just, so as you can see, like, where were you? Or did you want to entertain them a bit further?
Oh, no. They've had enough of me. They're totally done. They're totally done.
So actually, just to give a bit of an intro, even before we enter. So before what Robert was actually here, what you were hearing earlier in the background is essentially the waiting room for MeetButter, and I can show you a bit of a screen shot on that or a view of that later. But essentially, you can actually set up the energy of the room or the mood that you want participants to have even up front by customizing the waiting room to have different images, different sort of music. And just the feel that you'd want them to have. And obviously, knocking. Oh, sorry. Yes.
Before you admit it, maybe if you don't mind, we can switch sharing screens. So it's like, okay, here's my view versus that. So you're seeing what you're seeing now is the admin view on Cheska's side. So if we were to see what's happening with me over here, is that essentially I have the MeetButter thing. I have all the snowflakes in the back, which is a very nice touch. You have exactly where we're going, the request sent, and obviously Cheska's taking her own sweet time to actually add me into the thing. So I'm just going to keep on playing this. By the way, you can actually change this, I believe. Oh no, this is only if the admins actually chooses. So she wants me listening to Butter Christmas the entire time. I'm waiting for her to get on the call, and I'll just wait until I get sent in.
And now I will send him in. Okay.
Oh, and I'm joining.
There. Yes, you are now.
Okay.
So yeah, from the waiting room, essentially, participants can knock into the room. So there's another privacy setting that we have. Should I mute myself on?
Oh, that's me. Hang on.
Okay.
Well, it's going to be interesting, but Zoom and MeetButter at the same time. It's going to be a collision of different things. So we'll see.
Let's see. I'm also going to mute myself and MeetButter. But essentially, yeah. So we do have different views for participants and facilitators. The reason being, we actually feel that participants should have a simpler flow to follow because they need to. It's almost like having kids in a sandbox. Like you need to have your participants almost be guardrailed as to what they need to be focusing on during the session. Whereas for facilitators, you need to almost have a more powerful tool suite to play around with, to have all of the things that you need to run in one. during the session. And as you can see in my screen, it's an all-in-one view wherein the right-hand panel for facilitators almost becomes your toolkit of sorts, wherein you can actually play the agenda, which participants will be able to see. So we've gone through the intro.
We are actually seeing the participant agenda right now. So we're still sharing my screen. So I'm seeing everything that's going. So now we're doing intros.
Lovely, lovely. Let me also share my screen then. I'll stop your share.
No, don't take it. Oh, go ahead.
You see mine there. So what I was talking about earlier is a different view altogether. Participants actually just follow the cues of the facilitator, which I'll be doing. And the facilitator is marked by the star in the photo, just because they have a bit more power in this particular proceeding. So as you can see, you can actually preset a lot of stuff like the agenda. And I'll minimize this. The agenda, you can preset it up front by actually just setting up the room and already putting in the agenda items as and when you need. So you can see here that I've prepared this along and time capped it depending on how long I want to run it during the session. You can also preset things like timers. So I was meaning to run this earlier as an exercise, but you can actually use the timers for so many things, not just for things like running your timers for sprint. You can also run them use them actually for icebreakers even. Yeah, this is our fairy gift. But essentially, because one of the pain points we heard from facilitators is the fact that they almost needed to pull out different methods, like even have a clock there sometimes, just to show participants how much time they was actually running. You can also preset polls, both open-ended, multiple choice, and quiz type polls direct on the tool, and actually export the data after when you need it. So this is one example. So I think it would be good if you switch over to your view here, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
So here, let's see. I can run an open-ended poll, wherein let's say I don't run design sprints per se, but this is the view that participants will have, and you can actually also allow facilitators to answer. And once they've done so, say ideating on time, you can actually have participants almost upvote on the sessions that they or on the answers that they actually want. So here you can see that upvoting just requires you to, similar in Instagram, you just double tap on the answers that you want. So essentially, it's also a way to pull in conversation or engagement from people and to see what essentially they resonate with. So let me just end these polls. And the other types of polls you can do are, as I mentioned, multiple choice polls, like this one, for example, wherein you can put in the right and wrong answers as and when you need it. So
I do like Voodoo, by the way. The
Voodoo designs, thank you.
Yeah.
So let's try clicking on Voodoo, but I know that's not the correct answer. So if I end
by the way,
poll,
your end of year party is starting up in 10 minutes, so we got to wrap this up pretty fast.
No.
They're going to be like, where's Cheska? He's talking to some dude in Dallas. Come on. Cut it short.
I love how organic the session is going, by the way. Anyhow, so yeah, you can essentially even program the right answers ahead.
Speaking of organic, this is one of the benefits of MeetButter is that it has that dynamicism to it. So as a facilitator, depending on where the conversation is going, if you need a little bit of insight into what people are thinking, this is a way of kind of getting to some related topics or to get to some conclusions to move a conversation forward. And this happened in a couple of sessions that we had just with kind of testing it out.
Oh, that's awesome. Maybe you can also share more insights on that later. So, but essentially, yeah, those are some of the things that you can preset later. And presetting them is super easy to do. Once you actually create a room, you can just preset the waiting room, as I mentioned earlier. You can also just add in new things and actually do them on the fly. So like, let's say this one is a test, A, B, C, and then it's almost like very Typeform-ish in terms of how easy it is to do the setup, if that makes sense. And then it can even be saved as a template as and when. So you can access it even when you're in different rooms or so. yeah, so those are some of the things which can be preset. Another thing we also noticed in or observed in virtual sessions is that sometimes it's really awkward to go into the conversation, especially if you're quite introverted, right? So sometimes you don't know as and when to step in. It's very, it almost feels like you're waiting for people to join into the conversation, or you're waiting for someone to end and you don't know when it's your turn to speak. So we've actually added in a queuing function. So instead of just having your hands, your participants' hands raised up, we actually wanted there to be a bit more structure to the flow of conversation or Q&A. So like, let's say if you're running a design sprint, when it's ideation time and when it's people's turn to actually say or tell something about the idea, then they can just line up quite easily. And the facilitator can just select on the participant, and on the participant's view, they'd be able to see that it's their turn to speak. Okay. So you can also clear the queue as and when you need. Another thing we've tried improving on, there's a bit of a back echo, but is essentially having the chat.
Oh.
Sorry, yes?
I think you have to mute your MeetButter. I think it's coming through twice again.
There?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Now we're good. So
you were
yeah,
in a baseball stadium before. It was kind of like going with a little bit of a reverb. Go for it.
I wanted to feel more like God in that setting, which is
right now you are, and you're
displaying.
You're letting everyone know about it just basically by pushing me around in this session. So please continue.
Please, okay, that deserves a disagree, I think. Which leads me to
that's one of the fun things is that those that you have emojis that'll happen at any particular point in a meeting. You can just basically use keyboard shortcuts to bring those up.
So the
especially with like getting people's moods. Like what is your mood right now? How do you think about it?
This is very accurate of my mood at the moment. So essentially, as Robert mentioned, you can actually use. It's also something that helps again introverts in terms of discussion, or when people are not as easily vocal during workshops, they can just contribute their feelings both via reactions, as you can see here, which you can access via hotkeys, or even GIFs. So GIFs, I think, is a fun way of just also pulling people into the conversation or having them contribute how they feel about an idea. And this is also something that other people can sort of join in on. Leads me, I think, to that in terms of chat, some of the improvements we've tried doing there is having the chat actually appear within the photo right now, because for some facilitators, it can be quite cumbersome to actually manage a separate chat window, especially if they're facilitating alone. So by having it appear within the view, we were hoping that it essentially can help them manage or just have one point of focus during the entire workshop. And you can even access a co-facilitator only chat as and when you need. So like, let's say if you're running breakout sessions and you want to advise co-facilitators of what like how you want to run the sessions and other additional instructions, you can just easily do that by actually chatting in the co-facilitator chat. So that's some of the basic features as well that we have. One of the things I super like is while you're running the session, we also want to ensure that you have points for collaboration during the session. And one of the things which we see that a lot of users we currently have get excited about is the Miro integration.
Mm-hmm.
One example is here. Okay. So essentially, I'm assuming a lot the design sprint community is a lot more familiar with Miro than I am. So I won't touch on the functionalities of Miro, but what we can essentially do in MeetButter is access your Miro account or Miro boards direct on the platform. So you'd be able to work on the workspaces that you have on Miro and the templates that you need while seeing the participants and then seeing their reactions, interacting with them, having them queue up, or even seeing the reactions that they'd have all in one platform view. So essentially, it just helps you also facilitate the flow of discussion a lot better. And if you can see here, hopefully also in the participant view that Robert has, you can actually just add in sticky notes, or basically do everything that you can in a Miro board direct on MeetButter.
And it's worth noting that the video preview is still below the Miro that you're seeing, so that it's layered, so that you're not necessarily just say part of the gist of switching between Zoom and Mural is that you basically lose visual contact with the people that you're talking to. Mural has had tools where they basically have an ability to join a voice call while you're kind of going through the Miro board, which helps. But what this essentially does is that it has that little bar down there so that you still know that the other person is still alive, hasn't fallen over, hasn't left their desk, or whatever may be going on. And you can still figure out how people are going about it. I did have a question, though, about this particular point. It's like, of the 5 tools that you feature in the present thing and the different options that you have, what made you choose those particular ones? Was it the availability of an API, or was it looking at what people were naturally doing and saying, can we actually port to that and allow people to work on their digital whiteboard through MeetButter?
The first thing we actually, essentially it's what you were talking about. The first thing we tried taking a look at is the tool stack of the workshoppers we were talking to. So what were the common things they were doing in the workshop, like sharing a presentation, essentially, or speaking through a training, collaborating on whiteboards, sketching, and also playing videos. Depending on the type of workshop they run, whether it be a design sprint or a training, we saw that like those were the most common use cases. So once we mapped those use cases out, we tried taking a look at the potential or the available integrations or APIs that were available to us essentially, and we just matched those two. So Rob is already joining, as I can see. So Rob's going to be sharing his experience of using MeetButter for a sprint later. That was how we sort of chose what sort of integrations to run. And more in the future, we're actually also taking a look at what other tools are most commonly. Hey, Rob. Hello. We were just running a bit through the integrations. Okay,
what's really weird, I know Rob too, and the fact that he basically is now wearing a hat versus like another day where his hair was flowing like it was alive. It's kind of a weird kind of switch. I know nobody else will know in this particular session, but that's okay.
Okay. Yeah, I think he might be hearing, since the audio was on Zoom, he might not be hearing us. But just to say again, hello, Rob.
Hi, I can hear you now. For some reason, there was no audio for those few seconds, but I can hear you now.
Yeah, we actually had our audio on Zoom because Robert's broadcasting.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's why. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so I'll keep.
Rob, I can basically give you the. I can give you the.
Oh, I can't hear you on mute, Robert.
Oh. Cheska, if you could you tell him that I'm going to give him the link to the Zoom so that he basically,
he'll send you the Zoom link as well so that you can also access the audio. That's fine with you.
Is there an invite? Maybe I get that.
Yep. Let me share it on chat. Or actually, yeah, I think Robert will be sharing it via email. That might be easier.
I will. Yeah, just give me a second.
Thank you so much.
Horrible
okay. Okay. And where were we now? We were talking a bit about integrations. And essentially, what we're planning to do is also integrate with other digital collaboration tools that a lot of workshoppers use, and with primarily design and boutique agencies, independent facilitators, so on and so forth. Hopefully, by early next year, actually, we'll also have Mural embedded. Does that answer your question, Robert?
Hang on. I had my son ask me where his writing journal was, so I had to kind of help him out with that.
Okay.
All right.
But yeah. All right.
Go ahead and click on that, Rob, and then I can bring you into Zoom, and then you'll be able to hear everybody.
Perfect.
Click on.
And yeah, let me just exit the Miro board already. But essentially, yeah, that's one of the collaboration integrations that we have. Aside from that, people can also actually line up YouTube videos as and when they need. So like, let's say, instead of running or going into another tab to play a video, you can just do it direct on MeetButter just by copying and pasting the link here. Another fun feature for me is actually the simple whiteboard, where essentially you can also sketch. So you can do wireframing exercises here, a bit of sketching activities, and have people collaborate as and when they need. One of the fun use cases we've seen people do here is they actually have whiteboard open on an iPad, as in the app itself, and then while they're sketching, people on MeetButter can sort of see what the designers are doing. So it's just a more fun way to sort of also get people designing and visualizing their thoughts. Okay, that's a bit about some of our integrations. And obviously, you can also do the normal sharing screen. As you can see here, it'll inception a bit. And essentially, you can also do, like if you're focusing on having or sharing PowerPoints and slides and having a more straightforward presentation, you can also easily do that here, along with spotlighting yourself if you want the focus to be on you. And yeah, those are some of the basic present mode tools. One of the things I haven't really touched on is Breakout. And this would be a more fun exercise, obviously, with a lot of people in. But one thing we know, or when we were also doing our initial user research about how people are facilitating online, one of the key friction points seemed to be breakout sessions and group activities, actually. Because essentially, you, instead of having or focusing on the discussion, you end up focusing on how to set up the breakout rooms. And it can be a bit of a hassling activity, especially assigning people into rooms, pulling them back in, so on and so forth. So we just wanted an easier way to set up breakouts. And how we did that was, one, by allowing people to preset it ahead. So presetting how many breakouts you'd need in each session, how much time each breakout needs to have, and how many rooms you'd need in each breakout, plus how you want to assign the participants. Like, for example, here, if I edit this, you'd see this, what I'm talking about. But essentially, you can sort of already mimic or sort of already think through how you want to run the activities and assign participants as and how you need. Like, you can have them be auto-assigned, like I'm doing here. You can also drag and drop them during the session, and you can have them assign themselves into rooms if need be. So it can just be a fun way of also getting people to interact or jump from room to room as you would in live sessions. I don't know whether we can run the breakout, but it would probably be a bit of a difficult experience on if we're broadcasting on Zoom. So I won't really do that. But I can also send some shots after of how that is. Any questions, Robert? Oh, I'm talking to two Robs, essentially.
No, I'm still trying to. For some reason, the link that I sent Rob was trying to get him to register, so I have to go do a roundabout and get him. And so Rob, if you can tell him, I'm going to tell him to check his email address at Be the Leap, and he should be able. We should see an invite to get in.
He has it. I think he has it. You got that, Rob? Okay, perfect.
Eventually, would draw you in.
And yeah, while we're dealing a bit with that, do you have any specific questions in terms of how to run it?
MeetButter in particular?
Yes. Or what are the other things that you're quite keen to know about?
Okay, hang on. I'm going to. That's weird. I can't unmute you. I muted you just for a second because I got that verb. There you go. So you're back. So you had mentioned before earlier in the call that you were looking to have MeetButter evolve into a kind of an all-encompassing workshop kind of companion, or something that people would turn to immediately for their workshop needs, for what they were doing with their particular session. My question to you in that regard is, as this continues to kind of be all-encompassing, what are some of the big things that you definitely want MeetButter to evolve in? For example, you want to focus on extensibility, like being able to somehow maybe link into Notion or to support other things through an API, a more robust API. That would be one example. But where do you see MeetButter going in 2021 that people can key in on, especially if they're like some of our folks in the COP that are on the fence or that are just kind of kicking the tires? What can you kind of promote for 2021 that people can look forward to?
Okay, that's actually moving in a bit to the next topic as well. But essentially,
dang, I'm getting way too ahead of myself.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, it's lovely whenever that happens. But essentially, like the first order of business for us for the first quarter of 2021 would be to actually release a full screen experience, because we're very much fans of getting feedback from current users. And what we hear is that right now for the use case that we really want to go in for, which is design sprints, agile coaching, they actually need a lot more real estate to play around with, especially when they're running things like Miro or basically other collaborative apps. So within the first quarter, we hope to release a full screen experience, which essentially has even the right-hand side almost collapsible depending on when you need it. So that's the first one. And then we're also looking at having it a bit more accessible by sometime in Q2 because right now we're a WebRTC app, but we also want to evolve more into supporting desktop, perhaps by having an Electron app and even having mobile and tablet support eventually. So that's the second sort of priority. And another key thing that we want to have next year is something that I mentioned earlier, like actually addressing the challenge of feeling and reading the room a lot better, and actually having more features to sort of support that even before the workshop happens. So that's something that, to be honest, is still quite conceptual at this point, and we're still testing a lot of as Rob Hamblin would know, we would still be testing a lot of the features for that one, but that's definitely in the works for half one next year.
I wasn't expecting you to say anything like VR or something like that, but what you're talking about sounds pretty good to me. And we had a couple of comments on YouTube that they like the minimalistic design.
Bless you.
Oh my goodness.
Feels tired.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
yeah.
That one hurt for some reason. Ow.
Oh no.
Oh, it's allergies. It's not anything catching or I don't need to put
it.
Thankfully, I don't need to put a mask on while I'm on the call. Ooh. And they also like the upfront prep capabilities of the of MeetButter. Before I go any further with some of this, the fact that Rob's kind of joined in and he's been kind of sitting there going, "Oh, hello, hi." It'd be worth Rob actually explaining who he is, what he's all about, and kind of how he's connected to MeetButter. If that would be worthwhile to do.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, for sure.
Hey everybody, so Rob Hamblin here. So I'm actually founder of Leap, and I'm running design sprints among many other workshops for my clients for Leap at the moment. Product design director for AJ and Smart. For those of you that kind of know the AJS team, so was there for a few years as well, running design sprints for quite some pretty big players globally, and had a very strong influence in the sprint package that AJ and Smart were obviously offering, and also just to kind of evolve the process, from Jake's original one as well. So in that time as well, we also ran a lot of remote sprints before the world needed to. So we were pretty well versed and pretty practiced in that setup before this year even started. Some of our clients even wanted to do that out of choice back in those days as well. But yeah, I mean, I very much love like the in-person kind of sprint, but equally, I think coming to this trajectory of like, okay, so why, am I on the MeetButter call? And that is that I feel that MeetButter is actually able to kind of bridge that with adding some sort of personality to this kind of remote and virtual workshop experience. And I was very fortunate to kind of be aligned with kind of Jacob about 6 or 7 weeks. I can't remember. It's like nearly 2 months ago, for argument's sake. And there's a circle of business owners here in Berlin. And we had the pleasure of, actually it was our first virtual our first virtual meeting, because Berlin had gone into this semi-lockdown. And it was on a Friday night. And I know, Cheska, you probably remember the story from when I was talking to you, but it was a Friday night. It was a long week. Let's just say we were busy running a sprint for a VC firm in California, and it was extremely intense. And I just remember this kind of meeting, like it was supposed to be a social thing. I'm thinking, this is a Friday night, like 6:30. It's like, I don't want to sit on another Zoom call. Like, this is just like, I don't want to be doing it. And then it was like, well, hang on a second, what's this? MeetButter. There's no Zoom link in there. Like, what's this MeetButter? I'm intrigued. And actually, I just did a quick Instagram catch of the Christmas music while I was waiting to join again today. You guys keep doing it. Like, basically, when I join a MeetButter call as a guest, I just love the experience that you'll put into this kind of waiting room, and you have this really nice music. And when I experienced this for the very first time, it actually just changed my mind. Like, it felt like, okay, I'm about to embark upon something that's just a little bit different from like the Zoom kind of experience that we're all accustomed to. And it just changed my mood. And obviously when we had the pleasure of Jacob giving us a walkthrough of this amazing product, it already got my attention from very, very early on. And and cut an even longer story shorter, last week actually Leap ran a sprint for the MeetButter team to evolve that Fill the Room challenge. And for me, it was, and I think maybe many of you will resonate with, okay, like, yeah, I like, the MeetButter kind of vibe. I'm okay doing it with a meeting with a few people, but I can't take that plunge to run a sprint for my clients in this virtual experience because there's such a lot at stake. And, I run my sprints in the same kind of AJS style as in that, nothing should fail. Like, it has to be perfection, like the minute you start to the minute you end. And, I just thought, well, actually running a sprint with a MeetButter team would be a really good excuse for me to also like really test the product and test its kind of failure capacity as well with the guys that make it. And I figured, well, if there's going to be glitches, then, I have the right audience that they can do something about it. And actually, there were no glitches whatsoever. It ran perfectly well, and it ran so well that actually we ended up running our user interviews from MeetButter as well via the Miro board. So we did everything from Miro, the Miro plugin inside the MeetButter UI. So yeah, Jessica, when you said that you're going to be doing some Q1 or early 2021 enhancements to make the screen real estate larger, you get us a big thumbs up from me as well. But I think that's enough of an intro and enough of a ramble from me for now. So
yeah, I think thanks so much for sharing that, Rob. And for me, actually, and for the whole MeetButter team, it was actually a super interesting experience to also join a session on MeetButter, because I mean, Rob speaks such kind words, but at the same time for us, it was almost a usability test on what are the things you could improve on with the whole experience. What are the things you can optimize on, the queuing, timers, and what are the things which almost coincide with other tools, so that we know which sort of parts can actually differentiate us a bit better. So it was as much a learning session for us as it was actually like a fun experience to just hold the sprint there. So yeah, that's it. But maybe you can, Rob, if you can share a bit about how it was actually like running some of the Miro exercises on MeetButter. How does that compare to other your experience with running other tools? Because that's what also we were talking about earlier. Like when just harping back a bit on how MeetButter sort of started. What were the differences that you felt between running it on a single tool versus running it with sort of several apps open in one go?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, it ran seamlessly. I mean, there were, maybe I should probably start with some of the kind of things that, obviously I would like to have remedied, sooner rather than later. And for me, the screen real estate was for me still quite a big deal. Like, it didn't make it impossible. Like, I was really surprised at how kind of accustomed to the screen that I became. I have a large, like 16-inch Mac, so I'm maximizing my screen as much as possible. But I think maybe for those of you that maybe are on smaller devices, then you might notice, like a slightly more kind of claustrophobic feel to the Miro kind of experience. But I have to say, like, I'm being really niggly. Like, it didn't stop me from doing anything. Like, there were things that I was thinking that I'm going to struggle with this. It's going to be really difficult. but actually it was completely fine. And for me, like at the back of my mind, so yeah, I was always thinking like, okay, what if something fails? And like when you're running like Zoom with, for example, Miro, that's actually my main reason for not running like the same video conferencing solution inside the virtual workshop solution as well, because we've ran sprints in the past, and if something happens with one of the technical side of things with one of those products, at least you still have one to kind of like fall back on. The plus side, for those of you that want to do Zoom recordings, those of you that will know is when you record your screen, you won't actually record your workshop space, or you'll have to make sure that you go into settings to make sure that you record the actual screen itself rather than the Zoom actual call. So things like that would be a plus point. And I was only having a conversation the other day with this, he's saying exactly the same thing. And I think once reliability is there, it actually for me isn't a problem to run the video conferencing solution from MeetButter. And maybe some of you were already asking, well, Miro has video conferencing. Why not just use the video conferencing solution in Miro? Of course you can. You absolutely can. But what you don't have is the personality of the MeetButter UI coming into it. So I think for me, it's like I call myself like a boutique agency. We're really small. Our offering is like really, on par, and it's like really, we don't serve anything other than excellence, but we want to have a bit of character when we do that. So for me, the MeetButter UI is something that will actually help us kind of communicate our brand and our kind of hopefully kookiness, or just the fact we just don't take ourselves in the person too seriously. The work will do that. But when you have an engagement with us, like Jessica, we were having so much fun on that call. And like probably more fun.
Too much butter punch.
I know, too much butter love. Like, I didn't know. Yeah, for me, it's like it's just about this kind of this added dimension, and like we came up with the butter love, and it just for me it has this additional layer where it's just far from Loom, so far from Loom. It's just for me, it's now like I only use Loom now with my clients organizing meetings. For everything else, basically, it's MeetButter.
That's super kind. I don't know how I would really take that, except for butter love. Maybe to be so we can also add a lot more value to them. Like, what are the tips almost that you'd have, like running on MeetButter? Any tricks or tips that people can actually do that you remember from the session that you just ran?
Yeah, I mean, apart from the obvious, we didn't use polls. I have to say, like that was probably something. I think I've mentioned this recently as well, that a sprint environment really doesn't lend itself so much to the polls, unless you're maybe using it as onboarding. Maybe that would be something that would be where that benefit came from. But like with just the use of emojis, actually in the actual in the actual video conferencing kind of suite, like this created so much fun. And this added people wanting to put their hands up or whatever, so you could kind of use the icons for that. For me as a facilitator, okay, this is there you go, you heard it. As a facilitator, and those of you who are kind of juggling multiple screens and multiple workshops, and Robert, I will come to you in just a second, but you're juggling a lot of things basically. And for me, MeetButter made certainly the sprint facilitation that little bit easier, because you were, it had some kind of order to like how people want to input. And actually, you just heard Robert or Santa Claus has an idea.
Robert, it's your turn now.
Hear from Santa Claus, but it just gave this structure to what tends to be sometimes a free for all, certainly in like the expert interview, or just when you're in the map, for example, is another really good example. It just means that there's a bit more order, and no one also gets missed off. So you have this structure for people putting their hands up, or people wanting to have an idea or a question. The MeetButter UI kind of handles this in a way that you as a facilitator, you cannot miss this, and you always address things. So the only thing I would say as a facilitator that you would have to make sure that you have a contingency plan for like additional conversation, because this would be a way where you would probably lose some time. But for us, I think it was perfect.
So one of the questions I have, and that I've been asking myself a lot, it's something that came up in our internal conversations about this, is what audiences have aligned with MeetButter's vibe with the app itself, because it's engineered and designed for particular needs like workshops and sessions and kind of doing what we've been talking about. But what have you noticed through your experience this year with people integrating with it and trying it out? Where does it seem to have traction, the most traction with some individuals?
Okay. In terms of users, right? I didn't
Or
quite
as a
catch the
group,
first
like
part.
an industry or a company type or an organization.
Yeah.
What have you seen kind of have a theme with the MeetButter kind of adoption?
Essentially, actually, the types like Rob is where we actually have been adopted a bit faster. So boutique agencies, independent facilitators, internal design shops is where we see that they resonate a lot with the MeetButter vision and also the UI that we offer, because it is quirky. It is a cheekier alternative to Zoom. So we see that at least in terms of the audience or the core users that we're seeing, it's really more of that type, design agencies and such. In terms of usage, we're seeing or use cases, we're actually seeing a lot from people who hold more interactive workshops, wherein you actually need to go through a bit of a complex route to get to an outcome. So things like design sprints, things like problem solving workshops or brainstormings, agile coaching is where we've seen it a bit used more often because of also the integrations that we've pulled in. So integrations in basic features like agenda. So we've seen them, it resonates with them at least.
The reason why I ask is there's an underlying reason why. My son currently is logging into these Zoom calls that have not Zoom calls, but they're Meet calls that are about 40 to 45 people big, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so far, the teachers have acclimated to that environment. They're fine with a lot of small moving heads on the other side. They just, every so often, when one looks like they're staring into the distance, they have to go into their session and kind of close whatever YouTube video that they're watching at the time. But I would think that this kind of environment would not necessarily for like small grade stuff, but something where it has still the need for the teacher to kind of move things forward, but also for kids to react and have side comments and questions and things like that. So it has the Rob Hamlin environment of the environment for workshops and kind of going that route. But then you have something like what I see my son encountering and getting frustrated with sometimes is that you could have an interactive mode where it's like, okay, we're going to go on a MeetButter call on like this, but for this particular reason, be it for like art or for a regular session, and kind of exploring to see how like school age kids would actually play with this. So take that as like just a suggestion that I see that. And if I saw that, I would have to kind of mute my microphone way too much because it would just sit there and people would be shouting back and forth going, you got an emoji head or whatever they do, whatever they'll do in that instance.
Okay.
That was Santa Claus's idea, by the way.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Santa Claus. Well noted by the elf. Rob, you also have something to say to that?
Yeah, off the back of what Robert was just saying, and what a better way to, establish a market where, you're getting kids to start using it now, because I think if it's a tool that they like in their classroom experiences, they will then take them to their universities and then beyond as well. So it goes back to the old Mac way of just putting the Macs in the classroom, doesn't it? So you get them used to that. So yeah, it's pretty smart.
Yeah, I really like that idea. I think I'm double voicing again, but essentially, yeah, I think we also saw some people actually use it for education cases at the onset. Although for us, it's also a business reason. Education is, as a use case, usually has longer cycles. So we also decided to focus more on like design agencies.
Glad you did.
But I think that's a super valid point, though. Yeah, you had something?
Yeah, I just said glad you did focus on the business.
Any other questions? I think you're muted, Robert.
Are you two still muted on MeetButter on your end?
Yes, I am.
Now I'm getting back over here.
Oh, hang on. No, I wasn't for some reason on MeetButter. I'm back again.
Aha.
Now we know who it is.
All right.
Yes. Yeah, exploring different audiences would be interesting because then you could just kind of see see who tries it on, see who kind of gloms to it. And I think beyond kind of expanding the tool, expanding the potential audiences just to see where those go, I would be an advocate for it. I mean, if nothing else, I know the teachers over in the elementary pretty well. Their time is like, if I think I have like any kind of time at all, it would be like, oh no, not compared to those. But they do have bandwidth after hours, so that'll be something I can bridge with them in January when they're back. They have somewhat of a clear head, and I'll go, okay, have you considered this? Because if you don't want to jump in another like Meet call, this is one alternative. That's the conversation I think I'd like to have with a few people that I know that would be willing to try something like this.
That would be super awesome. And yeah, feel free to like shoot them our way as well. So we're also happy. And for anyone who you know would sort of benefit for us walking through MeetButter for. Okay.
Yep. So
I think we're clearly running over time on the guest sharing time. Unless Rob, you have any parting words before I'll let you go now if ever.
My parting words would just be butter love, everybody.
And
yes.
On that note, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Yeah, we need some Christmas icons in here.
Yeah.
I was searching for a Santa Claus outfit in Snap Camera, but I couldn't get it in time. It actually asked me if I could do an update, which I assume the update is going to have that in there. So that's okay. So how about this? Before Robbie, you sign off, let's kind of end the session here. Unless, Cheska, if you have anything that you want to get to, there's a holiday party that's waiting for you, and everyone's like not starting it until you get in there. So
guest of honor. No. Yeah. We can just actually, like, if there are more. I wanted to get more ideas from people on what else we should consider, but I think I'll keep that to another time. Maybe you can have that as a poll in your community.
I think what I can do is as a post kind of connection. It's like if you've interacted with MeetButter, now's the time, since you have the attention of the company and the people that are concerned with building it. What would you consider in the future that you'd like to kind of see out of MeetButter in terms of features? Or if you're not sure if that exists, ask the question, and then we can basically see what they come back to. So you and I are both very active in social, so it's a matter of just basically having that conversation and seeing who reacts to it, and then respond to it within 24 hours. And I think we can kind of like bridge that conversation then. For sure.
And I think we can end sort of on that note, but I leave that to you.
Okay. And nothing else. Why don't we do we can do a screen. I have MeetButter up on my screen, so we can do it. We can actually do a screenshot up here while we're looking at MeetButter and do it that way.
Let me put on a Snap Camera thing as well.
Mine's still updating. I can't do that. So you can go ahead and do yours, but I think I have too many apps going at the same time. So maybe we can do something where at the same time we all do the same reaction, which is there you go.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. That works. That's gonna completely collapse my computer with the processing power.
Oh no!
The fans are going so loud that this thing's going to start levitating, so it's fine.
Yeah.
We're good. Okay, so I think it's number 4.
Which reaction do you want?
Let's see. Okay, so let's do number 4 all at the same time, and I'll try to put my head above my emoji when it happens, and I'll take a screenshot and I'll count to 3. All right, you ready? Oh, you went ahead of me.
Oh no! Sorry, not following instructions.
No, it's okay. Are you ready? 1 and 2 and 3. Hit the emoji, and let's. Okay, there we go.
Okay, perfect.
Very good.
All right, cool. You all have a very nice weekend, a relaxing weekend. Go to your holiday party and stop talking to me. You don't need to talk to me anymore. We're good. The place to go is meetbutter.io, correct? If you want to find out more all about the application. You can also find Cheska online on LinkedIn. You can go to directly and just look up Cheska, and there's going to be very few people that come around on the result list. But reach out to her if you have any questions. If you want to know more about what Rob does, go to Be The Leap, correct? Is it BeTheLeap.com?
Yeah.
And all the work that he does. You can also search for Rob Hamlin and Google, and you'll probably have about 14 different very valid Google results that correspond to that with all the work he's done in the past. But I thank you both for a wonderful session and it's very informative, and really love the perspective that both of you gave. And I hopefully we'll talk again in the future. Okay.
Thanks, Robert. Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, same to
Merry
you.
Christmas, guys.
Bye.
All right, talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.